Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Before I begin, I want to thank everybody who helped organize this event, Gary and our staff in the board's office, but I also want to thank Sarita Cross, who's here today. She doesn't work for the board's office, but she volunteered a lot of time to make this event happen. So thank you so much, Sarita. We really appreciate it. So the other day I had jury duty. Well, it's a few months ago now. And as I'm sure you all know, the first part of jury duty is this process called voir dire, where the lawyers for each side get you all in a room and they ask you questions. And, they kick you off the jury if you're too tall or too short or too fat or too skinny or too smart or whatever. I'm kidding, of course. I know, I'm sure that's not the reason why I was kicked off the jury that day. But what did happen was when I was there, the prosecutor asked us, there's about 40 of us in that room, she asked if any of us had been a victim of a crime or if any of us had a family member close to us who had been a victim of a crime. And every hand in the room went up. I don't mean most of the hands or nearly everybody, every single person raised their hand. And at the time I was a bit shocked by that. But then people started telling their stories. Now, granted, not all the crimes have been committed in Marion County, and there are quite a few folks who had recently moved here from Portland. But one guy talked about how he had had his truck stolen 3 times, the same truck stolen 3 times. Another person talked about how he was in downtown Portland and his stereo was stolen out of his car in broad daylight. There were folks there who were victims of sexual assault and abuse. And as I was listening to these stories, I just started thinking, this is totally unacceptable. This isn't like, oh gosh, this is something we should work on. But it's completely and totally unacceptable that in that room of 40 people, every single person had been a victim of crime. And over the months, as I've been thinking about this, it seems to me that it's almost as if we've started to be conditioned here in Oregon to accept a level of mediocrity in our government and in our public service. And it's time for us to reject that completely. It's not inevitable that our streets aren't safe, or that our schools are in crisis, or that we don't have enough mental health beds in our community for people who need them. There are many states in the United States where the streets are safe. There are many states where the schools are not in crisis, where they're good and they're safe. And every state in the United States has more mental health beds per population than the state of Oregon. The situation we find ourselves in is a direct result of a series of decisions that have gone back several decades made by the leaders of our state. Now, the state legislature did just recriminalize drugs, illegal drugs, during the February session, and I'm proud that Marion County was one of the first counties to adopt an ordinance calling for that recriminalization. And I'm especially grateful to Commissioner Bethel, who as president of the Association of Oregon Counties, made sure that our voice was heard in those negotiations with our Sheriff Hunter and our District Attorney, Paige Clarkson. Ending the failed experiment of legalizing drugs in Oregon is a good start. But I don't want you to think that now all our problems are over. They're not. Until I'm sure that if I were to drop my 11-year-old daughter off in downtown Salem and come back 3 or 4 hours later, leave her alone by herself, until I'm sure that she would be safe, that no harm would come to her, then my conclusion is that our government isn't working, at least is not as well as it should be. Now, I know most of you in this room know that Marion County is different than what I'm describing, that we have this standard of excellence that we hold ourselves to. In fact, we have these pins that say expect excellence. I brought one with me here. So when you come to Marion County, we give you this pin that says expect excellence. And our staff is here today, and they work so hard every day so that we're meeting that standard. They're really incredible people. I can't say enough about the folks who serve you in Marion County. But we're an island surrounded by government institutions that are in crisis right now, and we need your help to right the ship in this state. Some of the problems that we face are not because we have bad people in our state government. That's not the reason. But sometimes we have well-meaning people who make ill-informed decisions. But sometimes our problems in government are because we have leaders who simply don't care about the consequences of the horrible decisions they've made. They're not uninformed. They just view these consequences as a necessary cost of doing business. This is wrong, and these people must be held accountable, starting with the leadership at the Oregon State Hospital. Last year, I told you how the Oregon State Hospital has been releasing individuals into our community who've been credibly accused of crimes and who also have a mental illness before they're stabilized or able to stand trial. The state law says that the hospital must treat these individuals for up to 3 years. But a year and a half ago, during the course of a lawsuit, the state hospital decided not to defend that law and to reduce this time down to 6 months for most individuals. The consequences of this policy have been absolutely devastating to our community. Last June, a mentally ill man who was charged with a crime, Charlie Velazquez Sanchez, was released from the state hospital before his mental health issues were resolved and before he was able to stand trial. While he was out in the community, he went to Highland Elementary School in North Salem on the last day of school. The school librarian, Lori Miller, had taken her class of 3rd and 4th graders out to recess that day because it was the last day of school. I'm sure the only thing on their mind that day was summer vacation. I know that's what my girls were thinking about that day last year. But on this day, at Highland Elementary School, Mr. Velazquez tried to get to those kids. When Ms. Miller stopped him, he punched her in the face, knocking her to the ground. Ashley Richetto, an instructional assistant, called for help on the radio. The assailant responded by knocking Ms. Richetto to the ground and kicking her in the head. He then jumped on top of her and began to punch her head until she was knocked unconscious. When she regained consciousness, she yelled for her kids to get inside the school, and then she ran there herself. School employees, Andrew Limbeck, Caney Isaac, and Keith Broyles, hearing Ms. Richetto's call on the radio, ran outside. They physically subdued the assailant. Mr. Limbeck suffered a fractured hip and a punctured abdomen during this altercation. Ms. Richetto and Ms. Miller also required hospital treatment for their injuries. But because of their bravery and their willingness to put their bodies on the line to protect those kids, not one of those children at Highland Elementary School was harmed that day. Ms. Richetto, Mr. Limbeck, Mr. Isaac, and Mr. Broyles are here today. Before I continue, would you please join me in thanking them for their bravery in protecting those kids that day? Would you guys please stand up? Yeah, they're right here. Yeah. Ashley, Andrew, Caney, and Keith, people like you are the reason why Marion County is such an amazing place. We'd like to give you our highest award here in Marion County, the Distinction of Honor, in gratitude for your selfless actions. Would you please join us on the stage?
We'll do it after. Yeah.
Can we just give him another round of applause?
What these folks did was incredible, but they wouldn't have had to be heroes if the state would comply with its statutory obligation and quit pretending like it's not responsible for these dangerous individuals that it has been releasing into our community. Fortunately, our judges in Marion County have been wonderful. After hearing the evidence, Marion County Judge Audrey Broyles ordered that Mr. Velazquez stay in jail and receive outpatient treatment from the state hospital, who, remember, is required by law to treat him. But true to form, the Oregon Health Authority ran to a federal judge to have Judge Broyles' state court order overturned. And now the attorney for Mr. Velazquez has requested that his charges be dropped and that he be released back into our community. The state's behavior in this matter has been unconscionable. That's why we, your Board of Commissioners, have filed multiple lawsuits in state and federal court against the Oregon Health Authority and the Oregon State Hospital. We will not sit by and be silent when teachers and kids in our community are literally under attack. This year, I'm the chair of the Public Safety Coordinating Council, and I can say with confidence that one of the best decisions that we've made is appointing, your Board of Commissioners has made, is appointing Nick Hunter as our sheriff here in Marion County. Sheriff Hunter is the longtime leader of our interagency SWAT team, and he's a subject matter expert who is relied upon for training at agencies all across the state. He's put together a great leadership team, and they've already stepped up in a big way in getting crime and drugs off of our streets. And I look forward to working with him for many years to come. One of the things we're working on with the sheriff is a comprehensive assessment of our public safety needs here in Marion County to ensure we're using all of our resources to the best of our ability. Over 70% of our general fund is already used for public safety, but we have to make sure we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. But one thing I'm certain we don't have to do is we don't have to raise your property taxes. I've been hearing some folks in local government suggesting this recently, and I want to be clear, this is a non-starter for me. You may be saying to yourself, I haven't heard that, but I think you probably have. They just haven't been speaking very plainly. Whenever you hear someone criticizing measures 5 and 50, which are the basis of our current property tax system, what they're really saying is they want to raise your property taxes. Here's why. When your home was built, your local assessor assessed its value based on the market value at the time. So for instance, if your house was worth $200,000 when it was built and the tax was 1%, you would pay $2,000 in taxes that year. Now over time, your property value will increase, but Measure 50 says the assessor can't increase the assessed value more than 3% a year unless you do a significant remodel or rebuild your house. This also means that in practice, local government revenues increase at about 3% a year. Local governments know that their revenues will increase about 3% a year, and because most folks on, not most, all folks on Social Security get a cost of living adjustment every year, and because most balanced portfolios return at least a 3% rate of return per year over the long run, it all kind of works out. It prevents big swings when the economy booms or busts, and it provides local governments with predictable revenue that they can budget based upon. It also ensures that we don't get taxed out of our homes when the market jumps up. But now you have certain governments who haven't done a great job managing their budgets, blaming this 3% cap on assessed values as the reason they have budget problems. This is crazy. They literally get more money every year. Our system also allows local governments to come and ask us for more revenue on top of this if they need it. And we've seen this in recent years with different levies and bonds coming to the ballot. And we've approved many of them when they make sense. And we also vote no when they don't make sense. This is a good and a fair system. So the next time that you hear somebody say they want to fix measures 5 and 50, just remember they want to raise your taxes. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to vote for that. Finally, I have a few updates for you. We made the decision last year to open North Fork Road so that our community can return to recreating in that beautiful part of our county. North Fork Park and Bear Creek Park will be open for day use starting this summer, and I'm proud that we're the first government agency to open both our parks and our roads post-wildfire. If you head up that way this summer, please just be respectful of the folks who live up there and follow the rules. If you don't, our sheriff's deputies will be available to assist you. We also made the decision this year to dedicate some of our state-allocated economic development funds to support early literacy here in Marion County. We partnered with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library and the Early Learning Hub to allow parents to sign up to receive a free book every month to read to their kids from the time they're born until they turn 5. One of my favorite books they provide is The Little Engine That Could. Local Rotary clubs and charities had donated money to this effort, so that kids in certain zip codes in Marion County could participate, and we decided to fill in the gap to ensure that every family could have that opportunity. We did this because we know that parents are first and foremost the most important teachers for their children. And then we also started a down payment assistance program with the federal funding we receive through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. This works like a zero-interest loan that sits behind a person's bank loan, and it gets paid back to the county when the home sells, so the money can be used to help the next person afford to buy a house. This has allowed folks in our community to achieve home ownership at a time when it's been harder than ever to achieve that dream. What I also like about this program is it's a hand up, not a handout. And when a person sells their home and pays those proceeds back, they help another person in our community also be able to achieve home ownership. Although our challenges are real, I continue to have the utmost confidence in our future here in Marion County. This is still the best place in Oregon to live and work and raise a family, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to represent you as your commissioner. So thank you.